treating a human being as a composite individual rather than only a skill set. We are very against doing this very short-term, 1 week kind of classroom trainings and these kind of trainings. These trainings don't give the results. So very long-term training interventions, they helped us. Leaders have to practice humility. But humility is a strange thing. The minute you think you have it, you have lost it. The leader has to take approach where he's providing a pathway to others for their growth.
Mr. Pushp is a seasoned leader with extensive experience in human resources and corporate leadership. He is the former chairman and managing director of Hindustan Petroleum Corporate Limited. He has played a pivotal role in shaping the organization's strategic direction. Prior to this, he served as a director of human resources, where was instrumental in designing and implementing key HR policies and strategies. Pushp has been the forefront of building employee-centric practices that drive high-performance culture. An auxiliary alumnus, Pushp has been driving force behind the employee-centric practices, foster high-performance cultures. His leadership continues to shape organizational excellence and inspire workforce transformation. How has the perception of employee experience evolved in public sector undertakings over the years?
We need to answer this question in slight details and understand the context also. You see, what happens is that in public sectors, typically in a well-established public sector, it is cradle to grave employment, what we call. This is an old term, but the person joins with the company and superannuates with the company. Now that has specific unique challenges. Initially, the person is very enthused. Initially, he wants to put in effort. He also is motivated and he puts in a lot of efforts. But as he progresses in the company, the new learning stops, in the sense that whatever his experience is accumulated, he is applying that. So, the advantage of getting fresh blood, fresh ideas, gets a little bit a backseat. So therefore, what happens is that public sector HRs and the senior management has to take this factor into account and try and see that how do we actually stop mental attrition. You see, you have physical attrition where a person would resign from the company and go away. That's called physical attrition. In mental attrition, what happens is the person does not physically go away, but he switches off. Okay, now how do you keep that challenge alive? So you have to make specific interventions where you assist him in enhancing his capabilities, show him the pathway for his future growth, for his professional journey. And also one very big factor which needs to come in these kind of employments is that everybody cannot become a CEO. Everybody cannot become a director. So you have to actually bring this realization also, that there are ways and means where you can derive your satisfaction without going up only in the hierarchy. So against this background, now what happens is that I consider, with my 4 decades of experience, that the job security and the psychological safety which is there in PSU, okay, that's a big plus. We need to actually, rather than looking at from the flip side, we have to look at it from the positive angle. So that way, if these factors are taken into account, that capability enhancement and also this kind of psychological safety and security which is provided, now that can be utilized for enhancing his risk-taking capabilities, enhancing his experimentation, enhancing his new capability building, the portfolio. So that way, once this is done, there's very good positive work environment which can be created. The toxicity which is very common in the general corporate work, that can be reduced. Okay, so it requires specific kind of interventions, it requires specific kind of mindset, and it's a challenge. It's not very easy that you keep person's flame alive or keep him motivated all along. So these are a few interventions, or these are the few kinds of nuances which are there in PSUs. Also, what happens is that while we have what is called affirmative action, that you have some kind of reservation, there's some kind of that for various categories and things like that. I also look at it very positive. That is a positive in the sense that if you were to see the attrition ratio, attrition ratio pretty low there, because those people come and they automatically have that loyalty. You need to provide them a proper space to grow. I mean, the last comment I want to make on this particular issue is that, you see, when a human being or when a human resource which comes into an organization, typically an organization looks at is, through that factor of production approach, that man, machine, material, money and things like that. Now, human beings are much beyond that. We have to get out of that mindset and treat a person as a whole individual. See, when you go to market and say that I need a mechanical engineer, in return, what do you get? You get a whole persona. One subset of his personality is his mechanical engineering skills. If you have to actually get out and utilize his full capabilities, you have to address him as a person. As a person, he may have his likes, dislikes, his aspirations, his choices, all kinds of things. So you have to address all those. You can't simply say that I'll make you competent in mechanical engineering. You keep on, putting any effort and give me in return. So that approach in public sector has helped, treating a human being as a composite individual rather than only a skill set or a delivery person only of a skill set. I suppose that's the.
So how can PSUs balance operational efficiency and people-centric approach in order to drive more productivity and engagement?
Okay. As I said, partly I was hinting about this in response to the first question. And also, how do you, people-centric approach and productivity. Now, actually, this is, two sides of the same coin. These are not two separate things. These are certainly not two separate things. We cannot distinguish between a people-centric approach and a non-people-centric approach that is only for. So for a human resource, this is a composite thing. These are, two sides of the same coin. As I have said earlier, that people-centric approach, often it is misunderstood that it is taking a lenient approach, it is ignoring the productivity, it is doing away from the organizational objective. It's not that at all. See, the job of a senior management or job of a HR or job of a management for that matter is to see that how do we integrate the organizational objectives and the personal goals and objectives. Okay, and when you do that integration, there is no non-people-centric approach or people-centric approach. Okay, so that integration, obviously the organizational objectives have to be given primacy, but there is a scope, there is a way of integrating the two, where a clarity has to be there that if I have to meet my personal objectives, I can do it through meeting the organizational objectives. How do I increase the integration? That should be the attempt. Now, it's very rare that you will have 100% integration. It's very rare. It's a situation where you can't say that it will be totally 100%. Obviously, there would be certain areas where there would be some kind of distance between the two sets of objectives. Our ability and our sort of action plan should be to bring them together and enhance that area of integration. And once you take this approach, automatically this I would say the surface equation of productivity versus people-centric approach will get addressed. You see, what is required is discipline is not negotiable. Putting effort and those kind of outcome-oriented approach is not negotiable. But there is a way of doing it. First of all, as I alluded earlier, that the factor of production approach, just measuring a human output only in very mechanical terms, has to be changed. You can't only look at saying that you're doing work for X number of hours or X number of minutes or X number of inputs, and this should be the output. You have to go beyond that, and then only you can get the synergy. You can get the contribution which is far beyond the normal KPIs which we make. There's a concept in public sectors which some public sectors practice. It's called contribution surplus. Now it's like this, that suppose I'm paid X amount and my output is equal to X amount. Where is the surplus which is coming in? Okay, so now if I have to generate that surplus from all the employees, okay, they have to put in something extra, that X extra which is there. Okay, that extra comes from meeting his aspiration, giving him a comfort at a place of work, giving him a future pathway, and therefore in anticipation of his satisfaction, his life journey harmony, he contributes, which is beyond the X, which is beyond. So that is called contribution surplus. The other situation would be that if I am paid X amount and my contribution is X minus 1, obviously there is something wrong. We cannot accept that situation. Okay, and that is not people-centric approach. People-centric approach is how do we enhance contribution surplus. Okay, and that is what public sectors work on. And the unique advantage of cradle to grave employment, the unique advantage of psychological safety, the unique advantage of giving space for experimentation, for growth, assists in creating this.
So how did you transform employee focus and engagement in HPCL?
Okay, in HPCL, I mean, you should actually ask this question from our employees and our customers who have actually, been the sort of focus of this. So while you do that, I can give you the input oriented approach, what kind of, because in HR initiatives, another thing which is to be kept in mind is that the input for any initiative has to be very robust, has to be based on science, has to be based on proper research. Okay, and it's my belief that if input is proper, output is bound to be good, output is bound to be effective. Okay, we can't start from approach where I look at that what should be the outcome and then I start backward. In this instance, it has to be robust input. So there are a few things like, I mean, there's a whole lot of activities, but a few things I would mention is that there are various segments within the employees, not functional segments, what I call generational diversity. Okay, you have a set of very young people who are, even Y2K generation or thereafter or before that. Then you have middle level executives, and then you have very senior level executives. Now this generational diversity is a fact of life, and especially in HPCL this was very acute. So you can't have an approach that you would provide one size fit all. Okay, so we created platforms. We created platform for youth engagement called Uvantage. Now that platform was for people who are below the age of 35. So this whole activity which is beyond their work activity, where they do, and it is like right from rock festivals to management games, beyond their office hours they do this. Some kind of networking comes in, some kind of platform they are given where they are able to do things beyond their life, beyond their work life, work professional engagement. For middle management, we started something called reboot at the age of 35, at the rate of 35, because the middle level executives, their anxieties, their priorities are quite different. Children have grown up, medical, this, that, all kind of need. So address there, and also address there the final question that up to what level they can grow in organization and how they can utilize their abilities. For very senior people who are close to retirement, we created a platform called Vashisht, where their life learnings, you see, their technical learnings can come from the work you're doing, on the job training, but their life learnings they share their life learnings with the youngsters. So they provide that platform. So that HR intervention has helped. HR interventions in terms of capability building, long-term capability building programs, because we are very against doing this very short-term 1 week kind of classroom trainings and these kind of trainings. These trainings don't give the results. So very long-term training interventions, they helped us. Okay. Creating an environment where person sees his work as a subset of his total life. Okay, so that environment, that facets provide that. Taking care of their long-term needs in terms of their medical, in terms of their post-retirement requirements, because ultimately everybody is looking for that kind of a thing. So that provide platform where they can experiment with their own capabilities and see that up to this area they can contribute. So the whole gamut of HR interventions, right from providing them space to develop themselves, providing them space to look at their future, provide them competency programs, development programs which are longitudinal, and also involve their families into it, involve their spouse, their children in, and all this doesn't cost money. It's basically the approach which has to be done. And once you make them part of the family, their contribution, that contribution surplus goes away. So these are a few interventions, but the list is very, very long. And I would, strongly recommend that you should actually interact with few of HPCL employees who are beneficiaries of these interventions. So you would know that.
So what are the measures that PSUs should adopt in order to increase the well-being and mental health of employees in a high-performance environment? And also, what did you do in HPCL in order to increase the well-being?
Okay. Apart from taking the usual steps of providing, platform for Paramarsh, consult in confidence 24/7, that line is open and all those kind of things. Now that I consider as a hygiene, because that may not be the ultimate solution. While that may provide a platform, so while that was there, we took certain active initiatives where we addressed all three aspects of and this program was named Anand. So Anand, it's simply is for Ahar, means what kind of nutrition needs and foods and things like that. Okay, so coach them, teach them about simple things like what kind of nutritional things you should take. So is Ahar. N is meant for Nindra, that is sleep. Now sleep only not in terms of 8 hours sleep and things like that. The rest, the kind of how do you recharge yourself. So that was in terms of sleep. And the Anand is for they, that is your physical self, that how do you keep yourself fit. Now these are just nomenclatures, but behind that there are a lot of sub-elements. Like for example, we took a lot of neurological input in the Ahar portion of it, that what should be the good nutritional inputs, because we found a correlation between a person's sugar level and his output, his mood, okay, in terms of the kind of protein intake and things like that, and his efficiency, his emotional intelligence. Sleep is hugely connected with the emotional well-being, okay, the kind of rest. And sleep again, detoxification in terms of social media, in terms of teaching people that how not to get addicted. Physically, we started programs like Hum Fit to HP Fit, where we do internal marathons, internal walkathons across the organization to bring in this element. Okay, so because if we see well-being is not only a matter of discussion and giving some gyan or some kind of counseling. It is more fundamental, and all three elements are critical: person's physical self, person's emotional well-being, and also the person's input which he is taking in terms of nutritional inputs. So we have programs like Anand, which I said, where all these inputs are given. We actually created a space where we tell people that in your schedule you keep some time to waste time. Okay, you should have some me time for yourself. Okay, provide that me time to the people. So that's how, because it's a very critical thing and it's a big challenge. And public sector, it is, I would be economizing on truth if I say that this is not there. It's a huge challenge. Mental well-being is a huge challenge, especially in environment like us, where person can get disillusioned as he ages, he comes to middle age. So you have to provide, but look at it in a composite manner. Not only the one aspect, not only the psychological or therapeutic intervention. It has to be composite. Physical self, emotional self, mental self. Okay, and also remove a very critical thing which I want to mention is to remove the stigma which is attached with these kind of issues, because in our society nobody wants to believe or nobody wants to accept openly that he needs psychological help, because there's a huge stigma attached to it. So our attempt is to say that remove that stigma, and each one of us needs help and each one of us can help, and organizations can do up to certain things, but as a community of employees we can help each other. So that helped us.
So how can learning and development programs be designed in order to align with the employer aspirations and organization goals?
That is a key job which capability building has to be done, and I think this is the very right approach which is to be taken, which I have mentioned earlier, that organization objectives and individual objectives have to be integrated. So the inputs which has to be given. Okay, there are 3 or 4 approaches which has to be taken. First approach is that to be able to tell a human being or to be able to tell an employee that how this enhancement would assist him in his professional journey, that clarity, I mean learning objective clarity has to be there. It can't be transactional. Second aspect is, you see, the competencies which are there, which the competencies which we try and impart through capability building programs, they have to be classified and segmented. There are some things which I call survival competencies. Now, as an IT expert, I should be very familiar with various kind of software and things like that. Okay, for me that's a matter of survival. So when these survival competencies are there, employees would ask you to give that because they know that they won't be able to survive. So you don't have to push them. You have to provide training material and those guys will actually pick it up. Okay, these are survival. But in contrast to this, there are development competencies where you have to convince the fellow, convince the participant that if you enhance your capabilities in these areas, this would assist you in your development. That is where the competency development group has to take this approach. In contrast, you have survival competencies, development competencies, you have to actually push it. Survival, it will be a pull thing. There you have to use adult learning principles. Okay, that why would an adult learn? You also, because adult will learn only if he sees some benefit for himself. Okay, normally people will say, will see proximal benefits. You have to also show him the distal benefits. So, but for that you have to reason. If you just do training programs on immediate outcome basis, you would forget distal objectives. Okay, you will say that is R&D, I am not in charity and things like that. But that's a wrong approach. That's a short-term approach. One has to take a long-term approach.
So, what are the 2 actions that you would suggest that a leader should do?
2 actions, yeah, that's not 2, it can be a whole list of activities. But the top of the mind 2 actions would be, number 1 is that leaders have to practice humility. But humility is a strange thing. Swami Chinmayananda had said that humility is a strange thing. The minute you think you have it, you have lost it. So humility is not being a doormat, it's making other person feel important. Okay, so a leader should take that approach, number 1. Second, the leader has to take approach where he's providing a pathway to others for their growth. Okay, he is beyond self. Okay, his objectives, obviously he is responsible, accountable for corporations, I mean for any organization's growth. So he can't become a charitable person, or he can't become a saint and all that. So he has to have those things. There's no substitute, as I said, for hard work. There's no substitute for results. But the approach which a leader has to take is a very different from approach a manager has to take. Leader has to enable, to provide platform where people grow in those guardrails. I mean, he has to provide those guardrails. Yeah.
And on the flip side, what are the two things that you would strongly suggest that leaders should avoid doing based on your experiences and insight?
Distinguishing, I mean, the most important thing would be you have to distinguish when you are, dealing with a person or giving a feedback. Distinguish between the person and the job performance he is doing. As a manager, as a in charge, as a leader, I have got full authority to comment on his output of things which he has not done or not done properly or done properly. But that does not give me license to judge him as a person. I should be judging the person's output, the contribution, not as a person. A person would have given you a very suboptimal output. That does not make that person is suboptimal. He may be a misfit. He may not be able to align. But as a leader, as a manager, I have got no right. So when we do our performance management, counseling or performance management discussions, oftentimes people start giving, feedback on the person. Whereas we have to give the feedback on his output, on his contribution. So that's very critical.
So from your perspective, what are the notable initiatives and approaches taken by We Matter in addressing about employee well-being and engagement?
I mean, top of the mind, I'll say that the approach We Matter is taking is a very scientific, research-based approach, which is very refreshing, because over a period of time, HR has become a borrowed science, and We Matter is trying to bring science into HR. So that approach is excellent, because HR is a science which requires psychology, which requires adult learning, which requires various other systems, design, structures. Okay, it requires quantitative approach also. So you're trying to bring it together. A science-based approach is an extremely refreshing approach taken by We Matters, and this is very unique. This would take far. I hope organizations can take the benefit of the diagnostic surveys which We Matters do, and the things which you provide. But the proof of the pudding would be in the organizations executing that properly. It's one thing to do a survey, one thing to do a diagnostic, but second, it's very important and equally important to work on that. And you cannot do without both the components. So you're very, very efficient and very effective in providing a science-based approach. I would personally, would like to see, it's my dream, that We Matter also provides those interventions, that after diagnostic, these are the interventions. Obviously, whether they do it through We Matters or through XYZ, but you should be able to provide that recommendations also. Okay, but on the whole, I'm quite impressed with your work, and I wish all the best to you. Thank you.